Good afternoon and welcome to the Potential of Plant-Based Cuisine, and I'm joined by Louise Macbeth, who is the owner of Beck Hall in the Yorkshire Dales, the first 100% plant-based hotel in the UK, and LCB plant-based alumni. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So first what we'd like to do is kick off a little bit about yourself and the hotel, and then move on to maybe what it's taken to get to being a 100% plant-based hotel.
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you a little bit of background. So my husband and I took over Beck Hall in Malham in the Yorkshire Dales in 2014. And my background was a hospitality journalist before that. He was in IT, so it's quite a change for us. Then in 2023, we took the step to go fully plant-based, which wasn't a profit-led decision. It was actually we'd had a personal change in our own lives where we'd graduated to a plant-based diet, and it just felt like it was the right thing to do for us. We'd done that out of compassion for ethical reasons. And yeah, it seemed like we needed to at least try it. Also, we felt like there would be a demand there. We've always tried to create something that we would want to go to. And we were finding very few places at that time, especially up north, where we could go and enjoy a really nice meal. So it just felt like the authentic thing to do. So we made that transition in 2023 to better equip myself. I joined the plant-based culinary art course at the Cordon Bleu in 2024, which was a fantastic experience, and gave me a lot of confidence as well as we made this move.
Fantastic. So with that, you said that the reason for going to plant-based was health, and then you mentioned ethical, sustainable. If we were to look at the difference between plant-based and vegan, how would you best describe that in your opinion on how it suits the hotel?
Yeah, so we made the decision to almost label ourselves. We're always having to label, aren't we, what we're doing, and to label ourselves as 100% plant-based. And we felt it was a more inclusive approach. There's many reasons people are going to turn to a plant-based diet. There's ethical reasons, obviously, but then there's also health. It's proven that a plant-based diet, or including more plants in your diet, can be great for health and reduce diabetes and obesity and a lot of health concerns that are quite prevalent at the moment. And then there's also the environmental. A lot of people are becoming more aware of the environmental challenges and want to make a difference. And one of the biggest differences that you can make is with the diet. I think it's something like, if everybody had a plant-based diet, we could use 75% less farming land, as about half of the inhabitable land on Earth is used for farming at the moment, and farming crops to feed the animals that we're rearing. So, or even just one meal a week, if we just swap one meal a week for a plant-based alternative, one red meat meal, we can reduce emissions in the UK.
That's like the meat-free Monday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that can make a massive difference, equal to taking 16 million cars off the road. 50 million reduction in carbon emissions in the UK, which is about 8%. So it can make a big difference. There's people coming to us for all these different reasons, and we're trying to make sure our menu reflects that as well.
So it must have been a challenge to move to that plant-based in Yorkshire. When you think of it, it is, home of lamb, beef, and when I think of that, I think of pubs and big Sunday roasts. And I also think with, in compared to down south, up north, you're going to want to have enough on the plate to feel that you have value for money. As a Yorkshire person, you don't like sticking your hand in your pocket.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that you'll see on our menus as well. They're very much tailored to what we are essentially. And having run Beck Hall for 11 years, it's a beautiful location. So usually people come, usually couples, they'll do a walk. We've got some of the best walks on our doorstep. So they'll do a walk 3 or 4 hours. They'll come back and they want something substantial on the plate. They want protein. They want something hearty, something, that reflects what you could get in one of the gastro pubs, something like that. So that does influence our menu quite a lot.
Would you say the style of the food then is the gastro pub? And so what are the kind of staples that you would have on your menu?
Yeah, I think because people are coming to it for all these different reasons, health, environment, and ethical reasons. And we've got, it's important to make sure that we're catering to all these different clients that are coming. So we have our familiar favourites, obviously. We've got our banana blossom and chips, which is our take on fish and chips. We've got our steak and chips and the burger and those kind of dishes. But we also have the nicer dishes, many of which have been influenced by the course that I did.
Fantastic.
So we have like, we're working with like polenta and mushroom ragu with butter beans. We're using different with different proteins we can have. We make our own seitan, and we have tofu in different ways, and a lot of the whole food ingredients, even if it's just a lentil lasagna, which has got really nice rich ragu, and we've got a cashew crumb, and just looking how we can use those whole foods in there as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, one of my favourites was the lentil bolognese that we had from the course. So it's great to see that the dishes that have influenced from the course have ended up on the menu. How do you go about deciding what is going to be on the menu, and from a perspective of how you work with the chefs?
Yeah, so I guess when we first went plant-based, the menu was really dictated, and it was actually before I did the course. So it was dictated about the kind of food that I wanted to eat and a lot of the food that was eaten at home. I think when you're new, when you've been a meat eater, or you've eaten a lot of meat in your diet previously, you start by wanting to recreate some of your favourite dishes. So you find that you do have those possibly more of the imitation dishes on there. But I feel like it's always a journey. I think once you start experimenting, you become more interested in, you start thinking about your health as well. You start being more interested in the cleaner food.
Cleaner eating,
and really getting those beans, those vegetables, those legumes into your diet. So it's really been a progression. And even though we have both, we have the small plates now where we have lots of different options, like where we're incorporating all the seasonal ingredients and working with the different proteins. So yeah, with the chef, we often will sit down together and we'll come up with the different ideas for the menu and talk about what's been popular, what isn't. And really that's dictated by the seasons as well. We'll have a list of all the season, what's coming into season, and we'll start from there.
Okay, it's nice to see using seasonality and eating local and local suppliers. And as we were talking about before, you are going to have the staples that people want with popular demand. So we were talking about the big sellers being the plant-based burger, the plant-based steak. And how do you see are people now open to trying more adventurous things? So on the course, we tried to have varying different world cuisines in there. And we obviously have the Korean temple day for you guys. And do any of those kind of fit in on the menu?
Yeah, I think what's really important to remember for anyone coming to this with a view to having a restaurant or a hotel that's plant-based is we don't rely on only plant-based customers. So a lot of our customers who are coming to us aren't plant-based. What we tend to, I think it's like 14 to 23% of the UK now is flexitarian, and around 50% of Brits are actually reducing how much meat, and they'll have 4 portions of meat or less a week. So they're coming to us to get ideas, to try new dishes, and that's where this the plant-based culinary art, so it really comes into its own because it's becoming a cuisine of its own. Yeah. So yeah, we get a lot of people who are coming for those dishes as well, and also a lot of people who've been vegetarian their whole life. They've not been brought up with the meat alternatives, and that they don't want it. They don't want something that represents and tastes and feels like meat. So they're really interested in the dishes, and it really allows us to be a little bit more creative. It's really exciting. There's so much room for innovation, and the course really helped with that. It was very inspiring, and we can really have some fun with the plant-based food.
Fantastic. Let's see, what have we got next? So with the perception of the menu design, you've said, well, we've discussed already the gastropub, bistro style. Would you see more of the fine dining coming, or would you say that you are kind of not dictated to, but led by your customer base?
Yeah, I think whatever restaurant, maybe if you're wanting to open a fine dining restaurant in London, for example, and we've seen some really good successful examples of that even in recent years coming up, and that's your thing, then go for it. For us, we was already starting with foundation. So we wanted the menu to suit our foundation. So yeah, we don't intend to become fine dining, but luckily with the course that I did especially, it's all about technique. And I think just having those techniques and giving you, you can then take that wherever you want to go with it, which is brilliant.
Fantastic. Let's see. So I think we can probably move on to talking about the sustainable business aspect of that. So how do you see that sustainable side working within the restaurant? Do you manage to try and use, for want of a better word, root to stem cooking? So with that percentage of using everything on the cooking?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think we've talked about the 3 reasons people come to plant-based, but often it's a mixture of all 3 of those things. So even if somebody's come to it for health reasons, they're also interested in sustainability. And I think for hotels and restaurants today, offering plant-forward menu with really enticing plant-based options isn't an option anymore. It's a must. People are expecting that. Savvy travelers expect that. They don't, otherwise you might as well be greenwashing. If you're just going to talk about what you're doing with electricity, or you're just talking about one area, but you're completely ignoring your menus, then how can you claim to be sustainable? So menus are such a big part of corporate social responsibility. And yeah, obviously we've actually won quite a few awards recently for Sustainability Champion just last month in London, and before that as well. So it's really kind of just gone hand in hand with the move to plant-based, which is great for any person that's wanting to create their own business. It can really define you as a brand as well and become part of your key values. And we've actually recently started our own kitchen gardens. That's great because, you don't really get more sustainable than going out and picking the kale and then using it in whatever ways. Or, we've had lots of things there, and we'll often have on our menu, we'll have seasonal vegetables, and we're not specifying, and it's just whatever we've got coming in from the garden, basically.
And that's a great way of using vegetable trimmings. You compost them down, reuse them again.
Yeah,
I think a lot of chefs these days, especially going forward within the economic climate, is to be able to use everything that they have and not just select the best bits. And so that's always nice to hear. And that's part of the thing that we do on the course is how can we use these bits up to make something interesting with them.
Yeah, that was a real eye-opener. I think on the course was fantastic for that. You couldn't even put an onion skin in the bin without there being some new recipe that we could do with it, how we can use that. And I think absolutely in today's climate, where there's a lot of restaurants closing and it's just so difficult, to get that margin, being able to reduce that waste, not even just from a sustainability perspective, but from a profitability perspective, is so important. And yeah, the course was absolutely brilliant for doing that.
And what do you think that you've taken from the course into the business itself?
I think the key thing for me was confidence in the kitchen, because obviously as an owner, we're driving the business, we're driving the values of the business. For us, that value was taken to us plant-based and wanted to be authentic. I was just a home cook. And I'm working with chefs. I mean, obviously it's tricky to find chefs with plant-based experience, anything kind of substantial, and to come up with those ideas, it's so difficult, so the kind of dynamics of our kitchen changed from us having a kitchen and us being the owners to me being in the kitchen, working very closely with the chefs. And I'd be saying, this is what I want to create, this is what I made, try this, but then I wouldn't have the knife skills, I wouldn't have the techniques, and you feel like a fraud. So the course really helps with giving you that credibility and confidence.
Okay, and you just don't want to copy what other people are doing. You would still want to put your own spin on it. And one of the things that I talk about within the plant-based course is the techniques that we teach you. Is any recipe is now approachable, and with a view to potentially unlocking the plant-based secret of the dish. And you then all of a sudden, what can we substitute? And all of a sudden, you've got a dish that is now 100% plant-based that wasn't maybe 5 days ago.
Yeah, I think there's definitely room there. And with these kind of skills that you're learning, there's many places I go to. There's quite a high-end supermarket that I frequent, like just for a coffee in their cafe. And, like this. And then often there's one option there that I can choose as a plant-based eater myself. And then the seasonal menu came out, and suddenly that one option wasn't plant-based, even though it was a chickpea-based dish, because it had like a coronation dressing with mayo, which could so easily be changed to a vegan mayo and be more inclusive, you know, and then you really can get those extra customers in.
Yeah, fantastic. So with that, where do you stand on the pricing? So where do you feel that some of the restaurants that are plant-based, with the pricing and the skill set that goes with it, how do you feel that is it expensive, non-expensive? How would you rate that from your business point of view?
Yeah, I think it's important that we value our dishes and they're on par with any kind of dish, you know, because often, even though the ingredients might be actually a little bit cheaper,
yep,
if we're using a lot more grains and legumes, and often the meat's the very expensive part on the plate, but what we're putting in there is love and time, and, you know, so there's a lot of prep, so we're much more prep heavy now. Everything that we make is fresh. So we value our dishes as we would any meat-based menu that we had before. They're at a similar price point. But what we do find, though, even taking into account that there's more time that goes into it, that having plant-based options, you do usually get a better margin on that dish, which is great, because, you know, any place, you know, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I'm not saying, like, you know, people need to have a plant-based menu, but it should be a plant-forward menu where you've got really good options that are plant-based on there that are going to rival any dish, and people are choosing them for what it is, not because it's plant-based, just because it sounds delicious, you know. And we can charge a good price for those dishes, and we can make a really good margin on these dishes. So by doing that, you can actually increase the margin of your overall menu.
So you said that the restaurant sits 70 covers, and your team is about 6 plus.
Yeah, we've got around 6 and KPs and
the head chef. And
yeah.
so you spend a lot more time in the kitchen developing. So how do you find staffing?
Staffing's always been a huge challenge. I think there has been a chef crisis in the UK, you know, where there's just not enough to go around.
Yep.
For us, especially, we're very rural. And for a long time, we didn't have any staff accommodation either. So if it was tended interviews would go like, can you get to Malham? Okay, you've got the job, you know. So yeah, it was always quite difficult. Now I find, in a way, it's a little bit easier because people are seeking us out. People want to work in, you know, they're interested in this. It's something different that they've not done before. Often, you know, so they're choosing us as a place. So we've got people approaching us for jobs in the kitchen, which is a really nice position to be in. Because it fits in with the values, or because they just want to explore this new cuisine almost. I mean, it's not new, but, you know, it's not a trend. It's not going away. It's something that's here to stay. And as I've mentioned, you know, more people are becoming interested in actually eating it as well.
Okay, so when you come to training and developing the dishes, how do you go about that? And within that, your new starters, for instance, we had a little bit of discussion before about chefs that aren't plant-based, and how the mindset would go in to be able to free their mind for a plant-based thinking.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one, because I think often for a lot of traditional chefs, the vegan option has always been an afterthought, and it's not something really they would choose to eat. So it's kind of like, and also just to try and get that thought process that we need a protein-rich dish as well. For me personally, if I'm having a main and it's not got a protein on there, it doesn't feel like a main course. So just trying to get this way of thinking about what would you like to eat. It's almost a little bit like gluten-free. So if you see a gluten-free label on a menu, you kind of sometimes think it's not for me, that one. So it's kind of getting away from that thought process, like plant-based can be delicious for everybody. And everybody can eat it. And it's also really good for a lot of dietary requirements as well. So going to the training, it's really just just make a delicious dish, but don't use any animal produce. You know, it's trying to get to that. And let's think about what proteins we can use. There's so many to choose from with tempeh and tofu and seitan, and then the lentils and beans. There's so many different nuts and seeds. There's so much we can use, you know, that's good for the planet, good for health, good for everything.
Fantastic. What's the biggest challenge that you've found with having the business?
Staffing, I guess, for any business, staffing and people management is always going to be challenging, especially if it's not your background isn't people management. But I think if you value your team and you value your chefs and you treat them well, because I think as a hospitality journalist previously, I came into this thinking we're not going to do it that way, because it was almost like chefs are expected to work 70 hours a week. Like, you know, like, and how can we get the best from them if we're treating them that way, you know? So we've always tried to treat people very fairly, pay well, make sure that everyone has a good life-work balance. So most of our team members are on 4 days a week. And we find that really helps tackle the challenges that come from like HR side of things. Other challenges with the business, obviously hospitality at the moment, it's, you know, everything's gone up, electricity's gone up, the cost of ingredients has gone up. But that's something, actually, since we went plant-based, we weren't sure what would happen. We knew we had to be ready to go back if needed and to adapt. So we went into it thinking, if it doesn't work, we'll go back. Luckily for us, we had our best year. 2024 was our best year ever. And we've had some really good years. We're average occupancy 96%. So our first year of plant-based was our best year ever. This year, occupancy fell very slightly, but I think our rates have gone up a little bit.
Yep.
And it's been our best year ever this year for revenue. So, and I think that's a really great reflection, showing people that, you know, plant-based can work.
Yeah, it's interesting to say that the backup was to go back when this year 11 Madison Avenue, with the star restaurant around the world for plant-based, has put meat back on the menu, which is quite an interesting way to look at it. But it's probably the demand of the customers, and so if you have that nice customer base, because you also said as your customer base is, you're a dog-friendly hotel as well, and so with that, it's again ticking that box of people and supplying what they want. Yeah. And clearly you're obviously doing that.
Yeah, I think for some people, you know, being willing to adapt, and if that adapting does mean putting some meat back on the menu, that's fine, you know, because I'm sure that they're still doing a great job of the plant-based side as well. If that's what you need to do as a business, you know, that's one specific example, then that's what they need to do. And it is just making sure that you're looking at what the customer, who you've got coming, and what they want, and making sure that what you're offering is right for them, whether it's fully plant-based or not fully plant-based. It isn't going to be for everyone. I think at that level as well, it's already a bit of a niche, you know, the fine dining to the plant-based and fine dining, you know, it's quite a niche offering.
Okay. I think we've covered that bit. So on the course, you learn a lot of techniques and different methods, you know, with the fermentation, presentation, can't get my words out, preservation techniques, as well as different textures, colors, etc. How would you find that moved over into your day-to-day working?
I think for me, that was one of the things I was really keen to learn more about, and it definitely did the course in those areas of the fermentation and the pickling. And because for me, an interesting menu, I love it when sometimes I'll go for a dish just because it's got pickled rhubarb on it. Or, you know, I just like, oh, what does that taste like? I've never tried that before. I really want to try that. And it's so hard to choose. So having those really delicious accompaniments to the menu that can really elevate a dish was really important for us. So yeah, it's definitely something that we're incorporating into the menu. And we have lots of dishes. It's really hard to think of them now.
Well, we also did several different things where we were looking at sous vide cooking techniques. Is that something that you do back in the hotel, in the restaurant in the hotel?
We did. I think we did the preserved lemons and things like that, and also using the we use the backpack machine quite a lot for that kind of thing, which was an interesting take on it. And also we made seitan, didn't we, by washing the flour, which was really interesting. So we've done all those kind of things in the hotel. A lot of the pickling things, like the cold pickling, the hot pickling, or the different things that you can pickle is endless, and preserving. And I've been playing around with, I got some broad beans when they're in season, and fermenting those to make like a miso. So it's something that we're definitely working on and keep developing, as it's quite a fun part of the job.
Yeah, that's the bit I really like. Yeah. So that's my sort of like hobbyist element.
Yeah, it was very, you had a lot of great things going on with that.
How would you say that the trends have changed since you were on the course, and has that affected anything within your business? Have you seen a downturn, or with you, is it sort of kind of stayed the same? So we just mentioned the 11 Madison Avenue with their change.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you're looking at the news a lot, I think sometimes people can read the news and then panic and be like, oh no, everyone's putting meat back on the menu. But I think if you I think authenticity is really important, and look at the reasons why you're doing it. And we came from a really authentic place with this. And I think if something's authentic, the customer knows, you know, like, and it brings customers, and they're coming for something that, you know, we would love, and they love it too. And our reviews are fantastic, you know, like, and the customers are amazing. And for them, they come and they're just so happy to have complete choice of a menu. They're so not used to it. It's such a luxury for them, you know, and to be able to eat breakfast, lunch and dinner with us. So yeah, I don't pay too much attention to what's happening everywhere else. Do keep an eye on trends and things, but I think just looking at, you know, what we're doing and how that's going down and adapting for ourselves, yeah. Basically.
So with that in mind, the fine dining versus casual dining. So you're very much on the casual dining. Would you ever move towards the fine dining end of the spectrum?
I think for us, it doesn't suit our. It's not exactly. I mean, if you think about what the demand is for like the gastropub level, I mean, it's huge. At the moment, there's not, for the people that are interested, for this substantial amount of people that are interested in eating more plant-based, there isn't really much for them in that area. Yeah. So we've kind of found our area that works. So fine dining isn't something that we're looking to go into, but there's so many things, like obviously with the Cordon Bleu, you know, you can take what you learn there and apply it to whatever level you decide to suits you best.
Yeah. So you can just upgrade or lift the dish a little bit using the skills that you've learned at the school.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point, because you know, like those things that elevate the dish that you learn at school, you know, that your purees, having your really nice purees, or having your really, you know, how you treat the ingredients. That's something that you can incorporate into any menu. And I'd say we're not too casual. We're not like we're more gastro, just a little bit nicer than gastro. So we invite a lot of like celebration customers and things like that as well. People coming for anniversaries, we're candle lit and ambient lighting, you know, it does feel very special. But yeah, you can really elevate a dish, and I love being positioned where we are and really being able to surprise the guest as well.
Good. I think that's one of the things that's really the expectation of the food you're going to get in a plant-based restaurant. If you can surprise the guest and go, wow, I wasn't expecting that, you've ticked the box.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think the health conscious eating and the sustainability we've kind of touched upon. With the course itself, we showed a lot more world cuisines. Do you think that global plant-based, obviously we've had students that were in your cohort upstairs in the restaurant. We've got one of the students from Group A, he's working away. We've got ex-students that are now teaching in plant-based schools in India. We've got people that have opened their own businesses in India. We've got people that have got farm to table out in New Zealand. We've got students from South America, all over the world. How can you take that and bring that to Yorkshire?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic actually I think for any plant-based restaurant, looking at global cuisines is really important, because actually plant-based eating isn't something that's new. And it's actually only in modern times where meat is being seen as almost a component of every meal, and that's with the factory farming and things where it's so readily available and there's so much being produced. But actually, in order to eat, you know, everybody needs to reduce meat consumption basically. So to eat less, eat better if you're going to eat meat. And I think looking at other cuisines, global cuisines, is a great way of looking at traditional dishes that are traditionally plant-based. It's not an alternative, it's not a substitute, it's just a traditionally plant-based dish that you can appreciate for the plant-based ingredients that are in there. And we had, I think on the course, we had Korean temple food come along, the monks. Yeah. And And that was really lovely and inspiring, and it was great, you know. And like even just looking at seitan, which is it's not a new protein, is it? It's something that's been around for a long time, was actually first eaten by the monks. And just to remember that, and when we're looking at these influences and bringing it into our menus, it can be so inspiring. We actually have on our menu a Korean rice bowl, which actually uses one of my favorite little dishes that we did on the course, which was taught by the Korean temple food, which was it was a Korean ginger kind of chutney, and we marinate our tofu in that, and it's absolutely delicious. Everyone loves it.
Fantastic. And it's great that you said about sort of like how food is processed and clean eating, and that's one of the things that we look at on the course, is using the whole vegetable where we can. And have you seen, or as we looked at things, how processed food has changed, and has that seen a downturn in plant-based?
Yeah, I think obviously there's more awareness now, especially if we're looking at this from a health conscious perspective. There's more awareness that, you know, that some like meat alternatives, for example, they're not going to be the most nutritious thing. Saying that, not everybody's coming to eat a nutritious meal. Sometimes they just want something that tastes delicious. So yeah, there's a little bit of demonization there. I think from a business owner's perspective and where we are, I think it's you need to look at who's coming and make sure you're catering to each of those audiences. So I think a balance. I think for us, we wouldn't go all whole foods menu, you know, all very healthy, and we wouldn't go all like vegan meats and processed, and you know, it's just finding that balance that works for you. So yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of awareness of that, and also people are, you know, cooking more for their families and trying to cook with these plant-based ingredients at home, because there's so much talk about, you know, the benefits of it. They're not going to be they're going to be wanting to create nutritious meals, aren't they? So, and it can be very inspiring then going to a restaurant and getting ideas as well. We get loads of requests for recipes, and like, how do you do that? I really want to do this at home. You know, we can't keep coming here.
Well, that's also one of the things looking at the course, is being able to just be able to pick up any book and say, I just know how to do that. And that's something that we've kind of lost in the UK, because I'm sure there are a lot more plant-based dishes that over the last 50 years have just disappeared. Which is a shame, because when people think of English cuisine, they think of roast beef, they think of fish and chips, and there is a lot more, especially with regional cooking, that we can offer.
Yeah.
How do you find the role of social media within your business? Do you use it to promote? Because there's a lot of students that have left, and again, they've gone on to be social media influencers, promoters, whatever, and you see a lot of other businesses that are using this platform to promote their business. Do you do this in any way?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of areas to this that are worth mentioning. I mean, I think there's a lot of like noise on social media. You know, there's so many vegan influencers and like lots of, which is great. And there's so many different recipes coming up. I think for me, as somebody wanting to improve, it's really hard to like cut through all that. And like, you can't do every recipe and keep trying. I mean, I've got 4 children, so there's only so much time I can actually spend developing. And I think that's why the course was really good for me. It's almost like a curated version of everything that's out there, and it's actually curated for you and delivered to you, and you know you can go and do it, learn the techniques, and then take it away and expand on that yourself with the confidence to actually do your own recipes as well, you know, not just trying, because it's much harder following a recipe, isn't it, online, you know, like, or buying all the ingredients. Much better if you've got the skills to actually experiment yourself and the confidence to do that. So there's that aspect to it, but also from a business perspective, in terms of if you are putting more enticing plant-based options on your menu and you want to tell the world about that and bring in new customers that maybe don't identify you as a place that they would want to come to, then social media is perfect for that, because it is, you can directly target. There's so many groups like Vegan York, Vegan London, Vegan, and on there it's people, vegan travel, it's people looking for, seeking out the plant-based dishes and not necessarily looking for a fully plant-based establishment. they might be looking for something that just offers some really good examples. Maybe it's a couple and one's a meat eater and omnivore and one's vegan. They're looking for somewhere that does both really well. So you can really open up your audience, you know, and you can really get that message out there using a lot of the social media groups. So yeah, we do quite a lot of that.
Fantastic. So when obviously when you did the course, you did the combined course. So you were doing pastry as well as cuisine. And now we have split the course down. So the course has developed more and there's more things in it. I mean, how would you see the course as someone that is a budding chef that wants to know more about plant-based cuisine?
Yeah, so I think that the course, I mean, depending if you, I think first have a little think about what you want to do. What do you want to do with it? What is your passion? Why are you considering this? And then once you've done it, what would you like to do next? You know, the pastry that we did as part of the combined course was fantastic. You know, I just went for a coffee before this, and you know, I'd not had breakfast, and I kind of wanted a croissant, but as a plant-based eater, there was no option for a croissant there. And I know for a fact that you can make fantastic plant-based croissants. We did that on the course. So yeah, just having those skills and then to be able to bring that into a business. And I mean, let's say you learn how to make the pastry, the plant-based pastry. A lot of that can also, if it's an establishment, if you want to go and work in a restaurant, you can also make the dairy-based one still. You know, the technique's quite similar. You can do both. You can bring something to that restaurant that perhaps they don't have at the moment. So yeah, I think both courses have really got a lot to offer, and it just depends what you want to do at the end of it.
Yeah, and so with the course, you know, we were talking earlier about chefs that are already have the skill set that then join the course because they want to just learn more about cooking with vegetables, which is kind of something that's been lost over the years because we've become just so meat focused. And so it tends to be, here's the meat, here's the sauce. And a lot of people have forgotten that places that just used to do that would have the side orders of vegetables, beans, spinach, mashed potato, boiled potatoes. And all of a sudden those side orders have gone and you just have this meat plate.
Yeah.
You know, at the weekend, I was just talking to my wife and said, look, Sunday lunch, let's just do all the roasted vegetables and forget the rest of it. And that's something I like. You know, this small amount of the meat, we only need like a small amount on there, but plenty of veg.
Yeah.
And that for me is the best part of Sunday lunch.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can't beat the nice roasted vegetables as well, can you, on there? And yeah, I completely see where you're coming from with that. I think it's, you know, there's a lot that can be done, and it's quite exciting actually for the chefs. And also there's a lot of, if you are just working with the vegetables or with some grains or beans, just you open your eyes to so many ingredients that you possibly as a chef you may never have worked with. There's been a lot of ingredients that we use quite a lot in our restaurant, which, you know, the chefs weren't familiar with before, and now they're like, oh, we could put it in there to give it this flavour. Or nutritional yeast is one of them. That's something that, you know, a lot of I know you'll probably be very familiar with that from
yes.
the cheese making. Yeah, and it's really exciting to discover these ingredients that you use can really bring in that umami flavours into your dishes and to elevate other areas, and how to bring the texture and all the different techniques. It's very exciting, and I think that a lot of chefs that have come to us who aren't traditionally plant-based chefs, they've seen it as a new challenge. And, you know, when I go in the kitchen now, they're like, oh, I thought about this. Maybe we could do this with it and add that, and that would create this end result. And you can really see that passion there, which is lovely.
Yeah, it's a whole new chapter, if you will, and then just refocusing chefs to things that we've kind of forgotten. Different flavors, new artistry, new ways of plating. I think, you know, it's something that we should all, you know, strive for more. After the course itself, if you were obviously you being a business owner, it was easier for you. But if you were to do the course and you weren't a business owner, how would you look at potentially contacting someone like yourself, what would be your next step once you've completed?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, well, I can see even from the people that were on the course with me, I know people have gone into to great restaurants. One of my friends went into I think Michelin restaurant in London, and they're doing lots of their own things. So yeah, if you wanted to come on, I guess seek out what it is that you enjoy cooking, or what are you interested in, which kind of cuisine. Find the places that do it, and drop an email, drop a message on social media. You know, maybe there might be room there, you know, to come. A lot of these places have accommodation, which is great. You know, you can travel whilst you're doing it, and yeah, I mean, if anybody was interested in coming to work with us, we'd be very open to that. Just drop me a message.
I think with all things, you've got to find somewhere that piques your interest.
Yeah.
And you've got to do your homework to where you want to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sounds like a nice kitchen to come and work with. So what's next for you? Where is Beck Hall going next, and what is the what's on the horizon?
Yeah, so we at the moment, we're, like, as I mentioned, we're more than 90% fully booked year round. So we had a few options. We wanted to either expand Beck Hall or do another place. So recently we have made the decision to open up Wales' first plant-based hotel. So that's something new. That's going to be in North Wales. I can't give away too much. We're due to complete in December and open around March next year. So we're renovating. It's a beautiful property. It's around 12 bedrooms. It's a little bit smaller than what, with scope to grow if we want to. So yeah, that's where we're going next with it, and it's really nice because a few of our team members want to go over there, which will be lovely for keeping that kind of the product that we're known for, the friendliness, the food. You know, the restaurant is the main driver now. To be able to take that to Wales and do a Welsh version, it's very exciting.
Fantastic. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground on there. Let me see, have I got any more? So with the future of plant-based cuisine, how do you see it growing or going? What direction?
Yeah, I think touching back on where we are in England, I think that, you know, the message, it's not going to go away. I think that some of the crises as humans that we're facing at the moment in terms of health crises, I mentioned before, a lot of the issues there, environmental issues, it's not going away. So this isn't a fad, it's not a trend, it's something that's here to stay. And I think gradually, especially new generations, although not only, because when we first went plant-based, it was kind of like, who are our customers going to be? Are they all going to be young and almost like alternative, you know? But actually what we see all ages coming. And you look at people and you can't say you're plant-based, you're not plant-based. Like, we have such a diverse range of customers, which is really wonderful. I absolutely love talking to the customers and finding out how they got here to this, you know, how they ended up in a plant-based restaurant and why they've chosen that. Some actually end up there accidentally as well, but most tend to leave really having really enjoyed it. And actually, and they say they've eaten the first plant-based meal ever, you know, like, and enjoyed it. So that's great from an education perspective. So yeah, it's definitely not going to go away. And I think plant-forward menus are going to be absolutely essential for all establishments. As anybody, you know, claiming to be sustainable, absolutely essential.
The other great thing is you see more and more restaurants now having a plant-based alternative menu. Mm-hmm. So some of their staples going on there. You'll have restaurants that will have their focus on their one particular style and have more options. Gone are the days of the vegan risotto.
Yeah. Well, yeah, mostly.
Yeah. So yeah, no, moving forward, I think that's great. So if you don't mind, I think we've got a few questions. Okay. So what have we got? How do you showcase or advertise your authenticity?
Yeah, I guess we're very careful not to have, we don't have an interior designer, we don't have a social media person or a PR person. We do it ourselves because we don't want it to look perfect. We're not perfect, you know.
Yeah.
And I think just creating that real experience, because sometimes, you know, you can go all over the world and things are, so cities feel the same, you know. So we are an independent business, so we're constantly looking at what are we doing and is this true to ourselves. And we probably don't talk about it that much. Obviously, we don't have a social media person. You know, you've got limited time what you can do. But I think that makes it more real. You know, we only put something on there if it's important or we really want to tell somebody about it. And we also have on our website, we have things like our story, which tells the story of how we got to where we are and that kind of thing.
Fantastic. We've also got, how can I show my skill, but the person doesn't notice me? Okay, how do I stand out? So I would take that as maybe a chef that wants to stand out, or how do you then, maybe if you're a small business, how do you make yourself stand out?
Okay, so let's look at it as a chef who wants to stand out. I think that it can be tricky sometimes, being like, you know, if you're not the head chef, not all head chefs are open to ideas, you know, from their team. But what all head chefs want is that they want their margin to be good. They're being judged on that. So if you're a chef who wants to stand out, you've got a little bit of time, maybe not going on your phone and looking at what ingredients are going to waste in the pantry. And look, we've ordered mushrooms. What can I do? Not a mushroom risotto. I think it's something different, you know, like, and actually just, experiment and come up and say, look, can I make this? We'll put it on specials and it might make us a little bit of money rather than going in the bin, you know, so looking at things like that. And that's if you're already in a company. If you're just looking to apply somewhere, then I guess maybe just come up for a week and offer your services, you know, volunteer. And I mean, I've done a lot of that in the past, and it usually leads on, it very rarely doesn't lead on to something else. So. But
it's knowledge. You can't put a value to giving your time to go and work at somewhere. So doing a stage somewhere, you know, people that go to Noma, they're giving up their time. People that went to El Bulli, they gave up their time, and it's just to accumulate that knowledge. And that's something that you can then put down on your CV, that you've been there, this is what you've done. If it's one of the things that, how do you notice yourself with, can you become instant success with Instagram? You need a lot more to back that up. Hopefully that will answer your question with where you want to be. And also hard work. The old adage is hard work pays off. Fred asks, what's your view on environmental impact of imported ingredient often used in plant-based cuisine? Avocados.
I knew that was coming, the avocado. I was going to say avocado before we even added that bit on. But yeah, I think that, you know, there's a lot of talk about, you know, I mean, it's not like plant-based eating is just eating avocados, or that, you know, people who don't eat plant-based, they also eat avocados sometimes. And I think even if we're talking about an avocado, for example, if you're comparing it to a piece of industrially processed meat, the avocado is still going to be better. I mean, very few are actually, unless if it's flown in, but the majority of avocados are shipped in anyway. Yep. So that tends to be something that always comes up. And if we actually look at the facts there, it's still better than a piece of red meat that's been industrially farmed.
But it was like we were talking earlier about being able to grow certain things. Yeah. And the UK is not really known for its fantastic tomatoes because our weather's not down for that. And so when you look at what we could grow seasonally here, we don't have exciting vegetables that would grow there. So, you know, you're looking at a lot of leeks, celeries, those kind of things. And people want a little bit more than that. And the world has opened up, other ideas, something I was reading about recently, braised kiwi as a meat alternative. It looks fantastic. Not sure of the taste yet because I haven't had a go at it, but that's something that I want to do. But it's knowing your customer base and what they want.
I think as a plant-based establishment, you're ultimately going to be judged so much harder than somewhere that isn't plant-based. You know, not many people are going to the restaurants that are not plant-based and saying, hold on a minute, you know, how many emissions was this? You know, very few people actually, but as soon as you say plant-based, suddenly everything is scrutinized, you know, yeah. You're held at a much higher standard. But yeah, I think that was a really good point. Tomatoes, I mean, work with the seasons. If you do want tomatoes on your menu in winter, then it's going to be better to get Spanish tomatoes rather than English tomatoes that grown in greenhouses, for example. So, you know, it's not as simple. It's not always that simple as shopping locally.
Yeah, and it's by, for me, it would be by the best quality as a business that you can get. Okay, PJ asks, what's your advice for a prospective business owner focusing on plant-based options? Excuse me.
Yeah, so I guess it depends on what kind of business you're looking at. You're focusing on plant-based options, restaurants.
Okay.
So yeah, the advice would be really keep it authentic. Look at where you are. If you're in a position to open a restaurant in a building that has rooms as well, that's always going to be much easier to succeed, because the rooms can be your bread and butter, and then your restaurant can drive the business. The rooms drive the business to the restaurant as well. Obviously, not everyone's in that position, but yeah, just look at the customers that are coming and how you can cater to them. And I wouldn't, for me personally, I wouldn't go just very much whole food or very much vegan meat. I'd find a balance there.
Okay. And then finally, Ash asks, I went vegetarian for 5 years and might go back to it. What are some of the best plant-based dishes you've made?
Oh, this is a tricky one. I guess there's so many different ones. It really depends what mood you're in, and I'm sure you could probably answer this even better. But I mean, me and my family are all plant-based, and the things that we always go back to is the really simple stuff, like, you know, just like a plant-based pesto. We do a great pumpkin seed plant-based pesto, and it's so versatile, you know. If we're looking at the restaurant, that tends to be much more indulgent. So people are really looking for indulgence there. And one of our most ever foods is actually just like, it's a suet pud. I mean, we're in the north, and it's like, you know, yeah, it's like a mushroom stroganoff best. So pud is really popular. So yeah, there's so many different options. It depends. But I think the more you work with it, your tastes actually do adapt when you eat more plant-based food. You start wanting things and enjoying things more than, you know, that you didn't expect. We have a lot of like scrambled tofu and things like that and at home. So yeah, lots of different things.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Louise, for joining us today. And 11 years in, I wish you all the very best and many more years, and the best of luck with Wales.
Thank you very much, Colin. Thank you.